inevitable, foreseeable consequence. That's why all these safety precautions are necessary.
Yes, sir.
And there's nothing unforeseeable or extraordinary or abnormal about that risk of respiratory depression and cardiovascular failure in this situation.
No.
Now, let's assume for the sake of argument that everything happened as Dr. Murray described in his interview, and that apparently because Dr. Murray left the patient alone, Michael Jackson was able to consume some additional agents, maybe lorazepam, maybe additional propofol. Would the standard of care and what you've described that Conrad Murray did, would his actions, Dr. Conrad Murray's actions, still be a direct cause in the untimely death of Michael Jackson?
Yes. I mean, all the standards that were breached that I just stated are still admissible. I mean, he gave propofol in an unmonitored setting. He gave propofol with a poor indication. He responded to the arrest inappropriately. He did not have an appropriate response to an emergency. He did not call 911 on time. He did not document. All those things still apply.
And if the patient, Michael Jackson, was able to administer to himself either lorazepam and or propofol without Conrad Murray's knowledge, doesn't that by necessity mean Conrad Murray was neglecting or abandoning the patient for that to happen without Dr. Murray's knowledge?
Yes, sir. I want to, again, I didn't think I said this, but when you monitor a patient, you never leave their side, especially after giving propofol. It's like leaving a baby that's sleeping on your kitchen countertop. You look at it and it's probably going to be okay, and you're just going to put some diapers away or go to the bathroom. But you would never do it because there's a small, very, very small chance that the baby could fall over or wake up, get startled, and grab a knife or something. So you always monitor the patient. When we also in the hospital, when we give conscious sedation or any sedation, the drugs are in cabinets. We keep it in something called the Pyxis machine, which is like a vending machine, and we account for all the medications, and we don't give an opportunity for the patient to self-administer.
And that system that you just described, it's actually a locked cabinet and it's password protected, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So only a privileged staff member with the authority to go into that cabinet and get and retrieve the medications is permitted to go in there and get these secured medications.
That would be like giving Mr. Jackson a key and a code to his own machine.
Okay. But in the hospital setting, this cabinet is locked and only available to the person that has authority to retrieve the medications.
Yes, sir.
And the reason that is done is because it is foreseeable that someone could voluntarily take the medication inappropriately, they could accidentally take the wrong medication. All that is foreseeable, correct?
Yes, it's all for we treat every patient the same.
Thank you, Doctor. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Walgren, thank you. Cross-examination by the defense. Mr. Flanagan?
Could we take a brief recess?
You want to take the mid-morning break?
Yes, please.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take the mid-morning break. Of course, please remember all of the admonishments and orders in writing and verbally. We'll take a break until about 10 minutes after 10. See you at 10 minutes after 10. Thank you. Defendant Dr. Murray is present with counsel as before. The people by counsel is before. Dr. Steinberg is again on the witness stand. All jurors and alternates are present as before. Good morning again to everybody. Dr. Steinberg, good morning again, sir.
Good morning.
You acknowledge you are still under oath and still sworn to tell the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Cross-examination by the defense. Mr. Flanagan.
Good morning, Dr. Steinberg, everyone else. Dr. Steinberg, as a cardiologist, are you trained in the use of propofol?
Am I trained in the use of propofol?
Yes.
No.
So you never used propofol yourself?
I've used propofol before.
So you've used it without training?
I am currently not trained in the use of propofol. When I was in upstate New York for electrical cardioversions, we would use propofol.
Now, I'm not sure I understand what you mean here. You're not trained in use of propofol, but you do use it from time to time.
I have not.
The objection is sustained, but in fact, I'm going to overrule the objection. You may explain.
I can explain. When I was in practice in upstate New York, I was in a practice of cardiology that we would do critical care and protect people's airways. So I had privileges in that time specifically for use of propofol. We would use propofol briefly for electrical cardioversions, but did I get specific training in it? No. When I moved to California, current hospital privilege does not allow me to give propofol, so I've not used propofol in 7 years.
So there's a difference from location to location as to whether or not you'd be allowed to use propofol.
There is a difference in this case, yes.
So did you feel when you were in New York and using propofol that you were competent to use it at that time?
I was confident in using it because I had the ability to intubate a patient and rescue a patient in case of a problem.
Now, are there different monitoring devices required depending upon the state of sedation?
Is there different monitoring requirement? Can I repeat your question?
Is the monitoring requirement that you've talked about, is that different depending upon states of sedation?
No. If someone gets moderate or deep sedation, they should be more or less the same.
What about if they get mild sedation? Would it be different for them?
Yes.
And are you familiar with the term of conscious sedation?
Yes, sir.
Are you certified in conscious sedation?
Yes, sir.
Do you know if Dr. Murray is?
No, I do not.
The only thing you know about Dr. Murray, is it true that it's based upon his conversation he had with members of LAPD?
Yes, sir.
And that conversation took place, well, as you read that transcript of that conversation, were there questions that you wanted to ask that you thought should have been asked?
Objection relevance.
Sustained.
That wasn't a... How complete did you form an opinion that that statement was as to what occurred that night?
Repeat the question, I'm sorry.
Did you form any opinion as to whether or not this was a comprehensive, complete statement as to exactly what happened on June 25th?
Objection relevance.
Overruled in view of 801. You may answer.
I assumed it was complete.
You assumed it was complete?
There's probably questions that could be asked, but I just used that information.
Well, I know one of the things that you're critical about Dr. Murray is, and you thought was an egregious standard of deviation, was a failure to get an informed consent.
Yes, sir.
Well, how do you know he didn't get an informed consent?
There is none. There's no informed consent. Informed consent should be written, and their patient should sign it.
Does an informed consent have to be written?
Yes.
For litigation purposes, correct?
Absolutely it should be.
Okay. Well, what if you're not involved in litigation and you're just acquainting the patient with what the risks are? Can you do that orally?
You can do it orally, but you do it orally and written, sir.
But if you have a conversation with your patient, you tell him orally what the risks are, what you think, and you have a complete understanding with your patient, does it have to be in writing?
Written, it's not done.
What?
If it wasn't written down, it's not done.
Well, that's pretty much, that's for litigation reasons, isn't it?
I'm not a litigation expert.
Okay, well, you can accomplish the same thing orally as you can in writing, can't you?
You can accomplish something orally the same as writing. You could, but the way I understand the standard of care is that everything that we do, when we do informed consent, there's a piece of paper that we have go over all the risks and benefits, alternatives, and we have the patient sign. I have not heard of just an oral agreement.
So your idea of the informed consent is that document that you sign when they take you in the pre-op room just before they're about to wheel you in for surgery, and they give you all these papers and ask you to sign it.
Informed consent should start in the office, sir. You should have people sit down, not right before the procedure, but you go over informed consent again before the procedure.
Do you think whether or not there was a written document describing the nature of the informed consent and the patient's signature on the document had anything to do with the death of Michael Jackson in this case?
Yes, sir, because if Mr. Jackson would have been informed of the risks and the benefits, he may not have agreed to what was happening.
Do you know that he was not informed?
No.
So then you don't know if the informed consent was causative in this case, do you?
Objection. The state's testimony, he's indicated written informed consent.
I'll overrule the objection. You may answer the question.
What's the question again?
So you don't know if informed consent was causative in this case?
Informed consent, I can't be 100%, but let me state, if someone would come up to me and say, I'm going to give you propofol, a dangerous and strong anesthetic medication that's not indicated, and I'm not going to monitor you properly, I don't think I would agree to this informed consent.
Are you of the opinion that that's the decision that Mr. Jackson would have made?
Would that the decision that Mr. Jackson made? I would think any person who is logical would make that decision.
How much do you know? Have you read anything about Michael Jackson in this case?
Objection. Relevance, Your Honor.
I'm going to overrule the objection in view of the opinion. You may answer.
I don't understand the question.
Sustained on that basis.
Okay. Are you aware of the drug use by Michael Jackson?
Objection. Relevance. Vague.
Overruled. If you understand it. If not,
I don't understand the question.
Sustained. Vague.
Are you aware that Michael Jackson was a habitual user of Demerol?
Objection. Assumes facts, not evidence.
Sustained.
Have you read Dr. Klein's medical records regarding Michael Jackson?
No.
When you make these conclusions about the average person, if they knew exactly what the risks are, might not have done it in this case, do you specifically know anything about Michael Jackson's propensities towards drugs?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance. He's commenting on Conrad Murray's obligations as a doctor.
Overruled. You may answer.
Oh, I'm sorry. What's the question?
Could you reread it, please?
Question, when you make these conclusions about the average person, if they knew exactly what the risks are, might not have done it in this case, do you specifically know anything about Michael Jackson's propensities towards drugs?
No.
Do you feel that, is it your opinion that he would respond the same way that an average person would respond given the factors that you would say would be required in an informed consent?
Objection. Relevance as to the victim. The issue is the doctor's obligations.
Overruled.
So are you can I understand? Are you pointing out that Mr. Jackson was an addict for drugs, and that would make a difference? Because if you're saying that I'm getting informed consent, I'm going to give you this addictive, dangerous drug, and I know I'm giving you informed consent to an addict who's someone who